It's the end of February next month. We always look forward to that. We never miss that one. In terms of preparation wise, there's not a whole lot that I want to do between now and then. I've been doing a few things since last April 2021 was when we last raced the car with great success. I hadn't raced it at all in probably 2 years, and then we finally got it down the track after getting it dynoed with Jeff Johnson from WA, who helped me do the tuning side of things on the car. He was always keen from the start with this combo, 30 psi. If you're not sure of the combo, a quick rundown is it's the GM iron block, factory GM block. It's a 5.3. It's not bored out to 5.7, so it is a still honest 5.3. It's 18th thou over, CP pistons, eagle rods. It's got a steel crank in it. They are factory GM heads, 706s that come out on the 5.3s. They're ported, stainless valves, factory rockers, factory intake, pretty basic really. It's got a Gen 2 GDX 47 on it, Aeroflow intercooler. It's got a Mazia electric water pump, which helps keeps it cool. That's a very good addition to the car. And obviously Holly Terminator ECU, which Jeff, as I mentioned, helps me with from Perth. He's been probably the biggest help with the car and getting it going, and so easy, and it just behaves so well. Everything with this car has been so smooth sailing. Since we last raced it, I've whacked another Kirky seat in it, just getting rid of some weight. So you know, the aluminium seat, getting rid of the factory VL seats, they're quite heavy. Yeah, it's got the Holly dash, Pro dash in it, 6.86. It's got a 3D printed dash insert from Tim Fletcher in Melbourne. Done a wicked job on that. Yeah, the car apart from that is pretty much all original. All the trim's original. It's got rust and chips and dents here and there, but this is what we've built it for. It's mainly built for drag challenge, and that was the reason that I had put an LS in it from the start. It was just something reliable and would go fast with a bit of E85 and boost, and that was a standard combo at the start. Went 892, 154 I think was the PB with that. But yeah, just slowly chipping away at the car, and between now and next month I just want to get this under the car. What you would refer to as a track locator, wishbone, whatever you like to call it. At the moment we're just running a factory, like the whole rear end in this car is still pretty much factory VL geometry, so I'm going to ditch the panhard rod that's in it, which I did shorten when I tubbed it under the car. It's a little bit dirty under here if you can see, but the factory panhard bar will be going, and we'll be installing the track locator, which I've had powder coated and made up by Danny over at Spot On in Queensland. He's a good mate of ours, and just started talking to him about getting some parts to make one, and he said, why not, I'll just make one up quickly, I've got a jig. And he knocked it out of the park. Him and Andy done a great job helping me out with this. Those dudes are always super friendly. So I'll do probably a time lapse on removing the factory panhard bar and getting this in there. Bit of chrome moly, that's to go between the factory rails. This will go up there, and then obviously this will get spun around and go this way. I'll trim these tabs to suit the bar, and then I'll make a couple of tabs or a bracket to weld to the diff, just so that I'm not welding that straight to the diff. I'll put a little double plate or something on there, and yeah, this is all TIG welded, and he done a really good job, so I'll get that up there, and yeah, we'll do a time lapse and talk about how that works. So now that we've got the car up in the air, this is just the factory panhard rod that or it's an adjustable one actually, that I modified, because when I tubbed it, I think the bracket normally is more out here, with a hole in it, and I moved it back, made a little bracket there and welded that up so that the bracket, the panhard bar is shorter so that it doesn't hit the wheel, just for clearance. But one thing I've found is, like most of the cars, I like to have them low, and we're just trying to chase a bit of the radial separation that happens when you run a radial tyre. I just want the car, when it launches off the line, to separate, so we want the tyre to drop away from the body and push that tyre into the track hard. So it's not really doing that with the way that I had it set up. And another thing is, so when the car lifts away from the body a lot, what the panhard bar tends to do is grab the diff from the pivot that it's on and kind of moves the diff away from the body on that angle. So when I'm launching the car, I don't really want the diff moving from side to side. We want to keep that dead straight and try and get down the track as straight as possible. So that's where this will do its job. These track locators just run like a bushed solid piece of rod greased up inside of a piece of steel that's been like milled to suit. They're super tight, nice and tight, but once in the car and all the car weight is on it, obviously it's designed to be tight, and this moves up and down, allowing movement of the diff to go up and down without it being stuck in a spot. We'll trim these to suit. These tabs sort of go on here in a quick exaggeration, all adjustable, so we can adjust it to suit. And we'll just clean up the rails and weld up some brackets to go between the rails somewhere here, both sides. This is a factory exhaust heat shield. Probably might get rid of that just to make room to weld it around here. Don't know yet if I might MIG the tube in. It's moly, but might TIG the rest. I might put a doubler here so that plate and them tabs aren't welded straight to the diff housing. And yeah, we'll go from there. Get this off now and start grinding the paint off and clean it up, get ready to weld it on. So have the old panhard bar off. I've just had the car back on the ground, getting it at right height, just so I know 100% where I'll have enough room for the track locator to be on the diff and not hit that factory brace. I'm even thinking about just notching it and welding a piece back in there on a bit of a radius to get a bit of room, because the car does sit a bit low. Yeah, I'll mark that and I'll just take the paint off with the orbital sander there. And the next step is to get rid of, this is the factory heat shield for like the rear muffler. Don't really require that anymore when we have an exhaust that doesn't normally get past the diff, but it does on the street. So we'll get rid of this anyway, and I'm going to make a little doubler plate that follows the shape of the chassis rail, and we'll go up above that. There's a little curve here which you can't see until that's off, and same with this side. I'll make a little plate so that it chases the shape of the chassis rail, and we'll weld that to the rail because they're not that thick really. We'll weld something a bit thicker there and then weld the bar to that. Yeah, so we'll get this heat shield off and we'll go from there. Okay, so the factory heat shield is gone from the rear exhaust section. It's normally welded on here, just so we can get that plate, as we said, up in here. Weld a plate to strengthen that and then put that bar across there. Alright, so I've just finished cutting out these little doublers to fit between chassis rails. This one here, it's going to go up on the passenger side. It's got a little fold in it up the top there to chase the shape of the rail. So I might just tack them in with the MIG welder quickly because they're easy. I've just whacked a bit of black etch on the opposite side just to stop it being metal on metal. Just spin this wood torch around, cleaned up the rails, got rid of the paint and all the crap. Just stick them there. I might make this one because I got some 50 by 50 by 5mm angle, which is nice and strong. And yeah, just doing this obviously spreads out the load on the rail rather than just plonking the bit of chrome moly on the rail and just welding it up. You can lead to cracks, and yeah, they're not very thick, the factory chassis rails, so this should help heaps. So I'll tack these on and we'll go from there. Getting there, progressing. We've got a crossbar in. Just slit this end, filled up pretty good. Just tack that there and then we'll pull it down to get the weld all the way around the bar. Got it centered as close as I think I'm gonna get it. It's nice and level. Next step is to get the bar up there and trim the tabs to suit this bar and start getting it all square before we tack it to the diff. Getting there. Thought I'd never get there, but finally got it all tacked up. Took a few goes holding it, getting it in the right spot until I was happy that it was nice and central. Sits up in there good. Next step is to just lower it onto the blocks, check the ride height and make sure that it doesn't go up too far. I'll bring it down on the center of the housing a little bit just so that it wasn't going to get close to that bracing in the floor. But tomorrow I'll pull it back. I'll take the tacks off of the rails, take the bar down, weld it up, and then it can go back up there and I can weld these doubler plates up and whack some paint on it, weld the diff, brackets, and yeah, put some paint on it and be done. So it's 11:15, or 10 to 11 now. Just lowered the car back on the blocks, taken the weight off of the hoist. Just gives a rough indication of the ride height. I normally use these blocks, I made them up just to really set the car up with the anti-roll bar and mainly the pinion angle and shit like that. I'll just grab a torch because we're running out of torches. They're all flat, standard. But this is at ride height, and I'm really happy. From side on, it's almost level. It's pointing down a little bit, but there's plenty of room up there for the car to go up and down still. I don't think it will hit it because it's pretty low already, and it is set up pretty stiff in the rear. So we'll keep the shock stiff anyway for racing, and if we have to, we'll take it off and it will still clear, but we can always add the panhard bar later if we have to. I might just leave that there, the factory panhard little spigot on the diff. I might just put a shackle on that and utilise it for when we tow the car to strap it down, whatever. But yeah, it's all tacked in. Tomorrow night we will, or I will, weld it up and yeah, paint it up. Getting there. So after getting all the bar work and the mounting tabs in the spot I liked it, I've outlined the crossbar with chalk so I know where that sits, and just ran a nice good MIG weld around the bar so you can get it welded around the whole way, both ends. Now I'm just going to go around with the TIG welder and TIG weld all the tabs for the rose joints, and then we can wax some paint on it and weld this back up there obviously first, and then we'll paint it. So that's all the mounting tabs for the rose joints all welded up. They're not super the best you'll see on the internet or Instagram, but it gets the job done. Don't TIG weld a lot and always learning new stuff, which is, I think, just a matter of time and just keeping on doing it, and there's always something stopping from it being a good weld, but just got to keep having a go, and if you don't have a go then you never know, I guess. Obviously this is the TIG welder I've just used, something that anyone can just go and get. It's nothing that, no fancy tools, it's just an entry-level BOC BOC 185 amp TIG, and I did that on about 75 amps. So yeah, I think the next thing is I'll just roll this over and I might wax some etch primer on it, so that way it's all painted the whole way around, and then I'll sit it up there, tack it into place and weld it up. So bars sitting up in there, etch primed, marked out, exactly back where it was, ready to go. I've just set some cardboard up over the diff there because of the fuel lines, and we don't want a fire. I've also just filled the holes in where the rubber grommets were with tape, because there's probably 40 odd litres of E85 in the boot. We don't want that to catch fire. So I'm just going to MIG this up now, follow it around these double plates, and should be sweet. So, all welded up, went pretty well, no complaints. A couple of small spots where the wire got stuck just doing it overhead, but it'll clean up fine. Wax some etch primer on it, give it a paint, satin black. Bob's your uncle. Right, all painted, ready to roll. Come out really good. I ended up just using a black etch first to go straight over the direct steel, followed with an acrylic matte black. Both paints are acrylic, just for what we're doing. It's easy. By the time you mix up some 2-pack, it just makes a mess. I mean, there's no show car. I just put some tape up here and some paper, and yeah. Fine for this little jigger. So next step now is to just finish off. I've just got the bolts laid out here. Finish putting the rose joint back in the front. I just removed this to sit it between the bracket on the diff housing, so that when I welded it, it didn't pull it in. Fits good now. Just checked it. These are the fasteners that came with it that Danny supplied. These little aluminium bushes, they sit each side of the rose joint, so if I was to spin that, it just sits up against the face of the rose joint, and obviously one both sides, takes up the gap rather than being metal on metal, and there's a lot more room for the rose joint to wiggle around on. So yeah, I'll get that up in there now, and should bolt up all sweet, fingers crossed. Let's do it. So there you go, all in, bolts are in. Didn't go as I'd probably hoped. One bolt was a little bit out, only because I'd had the tie rod removed and then sat it back in. I've left the nuts loose for now until I get the car on the ground and just work out if the diff has to be moved over. I'll probably just remove both rose joints and maybe just get Dad to help put some pressure on the car once it's down on these blocks, and I'll get one rose joint up in place, put the bolt through, and then do the other rose joint to suit. But apart from that, I'm pretty happy how that turned out. Obviously these are greased up, these are nice and tight. That sleeve through there is precisely made to suit these sleeves that Danny and the boys at Spot On know their way around. They've done more than a couple, and yeah, hopefully this helps get the car down the track nice and straight, rather than separating the body from the rear axle and moving the body over with that panhard bar the way it was before. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Let me know what you think. I'm sure that I've done things maybe a little bit wrong, or there's a textbook way to do things, but you know, this is just me from home in the shed doing as much as I can myself without having to pay someone, because I definitely couldn't afford to pay someone these days with the way things are, and the way, I guess just the way that I've been brought up, is if you never know unless you have a go. So that's turned out well. This is just, yeah, a car that has evolved into something that was once very, very basic. It is still quite basic in terms of chassis and suspension, so it's still got the original GM cut springs in it, and just an old Viking shock, which are actually second hands out of a good mate's car, Todd Foley from Victoria. They're out of his VH. So like I said, there's no big dollars here. It's just working with what we got and what we can afford at the time. So this is just something that's escalated into this now, so hopefully it works. And yeah, Holden, that should be a good thing. I can't wait to get the car there and start doing some testing on Friday, racing Saturday and Sunday. Should be good. See you there. Hopefully no troubles over the weekend. There's a few of us coming over. Yeah, it's always a ball. We never miss it. So yeah, cheers for watching. If you have any comments, leave them below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Yeah, this is the first of many videos. I'm sure there will be more along the way. Cheers.